This is what long-term fat loss progress looks like. Steady progression over the course of time. Now, when we started, we were around 266, and sticking to nutrition, strength training consistently, we've gotten down to a new low weigh-in of 210 pounds. So that's 56 pounds of weight loss over this year. Now, this is a great linear line, right? Looks very smooth and it looks very consistent when you zoom out. But when you zoom in, it doesn't always look that smooth. Sometimes we see these bumps up here where we see a new low weigh-in of 255, but then it jumps up and now it's back to 258. And that's where a lot of people lose their nerve a little bit. They think they've done something wrong, they think they're off track, and they quit, and then they just go back up. But if you stick to the process will reward you and you will see consistent changes in weight over time. Don't get caught up in what's happening in a moment. There's lots of things that can impact the scale weight. So, to give an example, when we go through the holidays, that can be one of the most challenging things for people to see consistent weight loss with and stick to their goals. But you always want to set realistic expectations. At the beginning of November, this client of mine was moving in the right direction, dropping weight 227 down to 226 and saw some new low weigh-ins of 221, but then trickles around there. And this sometimes looks crazy, but it's only about a pound and a half or two up. This oftentimes is a weekend where we have a little bit more carbohydrates, a little bit more salt, and we wake up a little bit heavier. But if you just get back to the nutrition plan, you don't have to swing the other way. You don't have to starve yourself. You don't have to make up for lost time. You just have to get back to consistency. You will see that weight loss. Now, sometimes things like Thanksgiving will pop up. And once Thanksgiving pops up, the weight might come up a little bit, right? And might trickle up for a couple days, eating some leftovers. And you might think you've lost the plot, you're off track. You were 227, you got down to 219, and then now you're back up to 226. But again, there's a difference between fat loss and just scale weight moving. When the weight jumps up like that from a couple days of eating extra carbs, eating extra electrolytes from salt, some of it could be body fat. Occasionally, if you go from a deficit through the maintenance back into a surplus, you might start putting on a little bit of body fat. But 90% of it is water and carbs stored in the body as glycogen. And if you just get back to the plan, that weight will come off. And just like this client stuck back to the plan, went from 226 back down to 222 in the course of a few days. So 4 pounds lost in a few days is not 4 pounds of fat loss. It's stabilizing the water weight and glycogen. And overall, this is a great process to look through the month of December. They got down from 227 down to 219 in the month of November. It picked back up a little bit in December through the end of Thanksgiving, holidays, Christmas, and all the things that come with that at work and whatnot. But by the end of December, they were right back to where they were. And this isn't a month off. This is a successful holiday month, in my opinion, because they ended up right where they ended November. They got to enjoy some holiday treats here and there. They built more strength and muscle, super consistent in the gym throughout this process. So, what's going to happen when you're really consistent in the gym and you're in a small maintenance or surplus? You're going to build a ton of muscle and strength. Your body's going to feel really well recovered. You're going to have a ton of energy and you're going to enjoy your holidays. And then we get back into the new year and we go through New Year's, which hits people differently. Everybody's a little different, but boom, the weight comes back up. But then we start trickling down again. We stick to the plan. We check in with Coach Jeff, and we come up with a game plan to keep moving in the right direction. And by the end of January, we are hitting some new all-time low weigh-ins of 213. So we've gone from 218 down to 213, and we're just picking up in the new year. Now, it's always super important to know that it's not what you do in a moment that defines you, but it's what you do consistently and it's what you do next. So the month of February, we found 213 was our new low weigh-in. And we sometimes use this new low weigh-in as a new defining moment where we don't know how to see anything else as success besides our new low weigh-in. But our average weigh-ins are going down, and that's also really important to look at. When we only look at the low weigh-ins, you will only think that that is the metric of success. But most low weigh-ins are a combination of being your leanest plus being slightly depleted of carbs and glycogen and potentially slightly dehydrated. So once you rehydrate normally and your carbs are kind of level again, you might not see that low weigh-in for a couple days or even a week or so, but your average weight is still trickling down, which is the key. Now, When you look at this month, you may not look at it as a lot of success because it's got a lot of kind of undulation here. But once you've lost 45, 50 pounds, sometimes you have to dial in your consistency a little bit more. And what worked for you before to go from 260 to 70 just doesn't work to get you down to 210. And you have to level up your game a little bit to ensure that you can keep making it all the way to your goal. And something to keep in mind is the journey towards your goal is going to be a little bit more challenging than the journey to maintain your goal. So sometimes people are unwilling to do the uncomfortable or challenging things because they go, I'm going to have to do this forever and I can't do this forever, so I'm not going to do this at all. And it's a mistake that prevents you from accomplishing what you want. Now, it doesn't mean you have to do anything extreme. It just means don't look at what you're doing now as something you have to do exactly like this forever. You may have to work harder to achieve something than you do to maintain it. Now, it doesn't mean you can completely slack off once you've accomplished it, but there can be, if this is what you were doing 50% of the effort, you may have to work up to 99% of the effort, and then you can come back down to 70, 80% of the effort to maintain it. So, weight keeps going here, and we see a couple spikes, but see, an experienced coach knows that if the weight jumps up 4 pounds in 2 days, right around Valentine's Day, we know that there's probably dinners out, maybe some treats here or there, some carbs that are going to pull on water. Again, you cannot gain 4 pounds of body fat in a day or two. You can gain 4 pounds of water from carbohydrates and sodium. So I don't freak out when this weight jumps up, and I ensure that my clients don't freak out as well. And I let them know it's all about dialing in what we do next and building that momentum, because it is the freaking out that causes us to just fall off track. Knowledge is power. And once you realize that you cannot gain 3 or 4 pounds of body fat in 2 3 days, and you realize that is water, now it's coming from habits that are not sustainable, right? If you're eating a bunch of carbs, extra calories, eventually that's going to lead to more body fat. But if you course correct now, it's not going to lead to more body fat. And boom, we course correct, we get back to consistency, and the weight starts trickling down again, 215, 216, and boom. And sometimes it's just about being consistent, because you can be super consistent and not see the weight change immediately. So always keep that in mind, because if you just replenish your carbs, they're not going to just drop immediately out again. We want carbs in our body as glycogen because they fuel our training. But if you've been eating relatively lower carbs for a while, you're going to be running off of a smaller glycogen storage. And if you just replenish it real quick, you now have a little bit of that replenishment. And it's going to take a little while for that to come off again. We don't need to prioritize it coming off. We just know that the scale weight will be slightly higher until it starts to trickle down again. And boom, it jumps down to 213, a new low weigh-in, and then 212, and then 211. We can see that sticking to the nutrition plan will lead to that. And here are the big things that lead to that success. So when we see that the weight is not moving as efficiently as we want it to, and we're wondering, why isn't it moving? What we notice here is that we're missing some days that we're not tracking nutrition. So we track 2 or 3 days, but we miss a few days. And every day missed tracking is a day of unknown. The trend of the scale doesn't lie in the long run. So if we track 3 or 4 days, but we missed 3 or 4 days and the weight's not moving, we know it's coming from those 3 or 4 days that we have a bit of a blind spot. But once we start tracking consistently, boom, 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 18 days in a row of tracking. Not every day perfectly. Maybe we don't even track 100% of the food every single day, but it is the consistent effort of showing up and weighing in and your body weight in the morning and tracking your nutrition that will lead to that change 100% of the time. And so once he started getting back on track with consistently tracking his nutrition again, the weight started moving again. And it will always have that cause and effect relationship. So keep in mind, the weight may look like this sometimes as you're moving in that direction, but when you zoom out, it starts to look a little bit more linear and more linear. And that's really what fat loss and weight loss looks like. Is it's going to undulate up and down over time, throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. But if you stick to the process and you adhere to a consistent nutrition plan that feels sustainable for you, you're in a caloric deficit, you're getting enough protein, enough carbs to fuel your training, enough fiber and whole foods to feel full and satiated, you're going to see that weight loss in the long run. Now, The last thing I always say is that what's more important than weight loss is fat loss. That's the most important part that we look at over time, is seeing that the fat loss itself is going down, because it's not just about the weight moving down, but it is about the fat moving down as well. And we want to make sure we're doing our best to maintain lean body mass. Now, this is a normal kind of undulation of lean body mass. Lean body mass is everything that's not fat. Now, the thing that we care about is the muscle as part of lean body mass. But we know that lean body mass is muscle, water, bone, skin, it's everything else. But the things that move are going to be muscle. It can go up, it can go down. Water weight, it can fluctuate up and down. Glycogen, which is carbs stored in the muscles, that can go up or down depending on if you're depleted or if you're replenished. Both sodium and glycogen can bring in water, so we hold more water. And then gut volume as well. So, for example, if you're holding food for a couple of days and you haven't had a bowel movement, you're going to have a little bit heavier weight. It just depends on how long food is staying in your digestive tract. That will impact the scale weight. Lean body mass can fluctuate over time, but as long as it's not significantly dropping, we know that we're moving in the right direction. And we know that we're losing fat and not muscle. And that is the key, because if you keep all of your muscle that you have, and if you build some while losing fat, you're going to keep your metabolism as high as possible, and you're going to be able to sustainably keep losing body fat. But if you lose a bunch of muscle early on, you're going to lower your metabolism and you're going to stall out your fat loss. So focus on fat loss over time, not just weight loss, and focus on that trend over time. And don't get nervous if you see it jump up here and there. Just trust the process.